Okay, perfect. I just want to thank you everyone for coming today. Just make sure that if you don't already have your mics on mute, please turn those on mute. And I would like to introduce Chris. He is the Senior Regional Sales Manager of the Great Lakes region. I really appreciate him coming here. He is going to be talking about the Simrads that we have on most of our boats. So this will be a great informative class. So definitely stay to the end and happy learning. I'm going to pass it over to Chris and he can get started. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Taylor. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight. And thanks for letting me reschedule. I had a little flu bug a couple weeks ago, so I had to reorder for tonight. But we're going to talk about our Simrad NSX. So this came out about 2 years ago and is predominant in the fleet for Freedom Boat Club, as well as Sea Ray and Boston Whaler, and a lot of other manufacturers. So just kind of do a quick overview of the product, then we'll delve into the applications. So charting, sonar, radar, how the units can work together if we've got multiple screens, what information is available on our data bar, and then just some interface with the machinery, and I'll finish up with our companion app for your phone. So the NSX is built on our new Neon operating system. This is an Android-based operating system, and we made this transition to Neon from our Navico operating system, which is what you've been using in the Go series or the NSS series previously. We had about 10 or 12 people in the world that could program in our NOS operating system. Neon being Android-based, there's hundreds and thousands of people that can program. So this gives us the ability to add new features and to innovate more quickly. So that's why we've made the jump to the Neon. We just launched our new NSS 4, which is Neon based. So it's basically a souped up version of the NSX with some buttons. So you'll start to see that roll out this year on boats. These are multi-function displays. So, back in the day when I grew up boating, we had a fish finder or maybe a chart plotter. If you're real fancy, you might have a radar. And those would be typically 3 5-inch or 7-inch screens on a boat. With the advent of the multi-function display, or MFD, we can now have one screen as large as 24 inches with all of our functions: chart, radar, sonar, digital switching, engine information, satellite weather, autopilot integration. So lots of capability to be able to show information to the boater on a larger screen, whether it's split into windows or just one large screen. So again, with the NSX, we have a 7, a 9-inch, and a 12-inch screen. I think primarily you'll probably be seeing the 7 and 9s. Just some screenshots showing you some of the different functionality. So starting in the lower left-hand corners, our chart screen. Going into upper left-hand corner is our traditional sonar on the left, and to the right of that is the downscan. Downscan uses the frequencies of the side scan sonar to give me really good definition of structure, but typically that didn't show me very good fish. So we came up with something called Fish Reveal, where I can take the fish arches from traditional sonar and show it on the structure information from the downscan. Here in the middle, we've got a 4-way or a 3-way split. So we've got traditional sonar upper left, side scan lower left, and in the right side is the downscan. Over to the right, we've got a radar screen and an autopilot. And then lower right, we're back into a full screen sonar. And in the middle is our home screen. So that's where we have all the different apps or functions. So chart, sonar, radar, side scan, autopilot, engine information, and autopilot. So when we hit one of these tiles, we're going to go to that function. If I keep my finger on that, that'll actually take me to preset split windows. So here's just the same screens in a 9-inch and then in the 12. So as we get into the larger screens, we can get more information onto one screen, and it's a little easier to read. On the back of the units, that yellow plug is Ethernet. So that'll be a tan and yellow cable. That's going to share pictures. So my sonar, my radar, my chart, satellite weather, all that data is going to share between screens via that Ethernet cable. Next, as we move from left to right, is the NEMA 2000. So that's a black molded cable that comes from the screen and goes to a backbone with a bunch of T's. And this is sharing data, so numbers, engine information, lat long, temperature, distance to waypoint, bearing to waypoint. All the numbers and waypoint information is shared between the different units automatically as we're playing with the units. On the Ethernet, we will share waypoints on Ethernet, but there's going to be a time lag between when you create it, when it shows up on the next unit. Looking at the 12-inch screen and the 9-inch, we have a USB port. So we can have memory sticks there to save waypoints, routes, and trails, or to do screen captures on. Next, we have our 4-pin power cable. And then lastly is a single sonar port. So most of these units are sold with what's called an active imaging 3-in-1. So that's one 10-inch long transducer built on the or mounted on the transom of the boat, plugs into that, and that's going to give us that side scan, the down scan, the traditional sonar, all out of one transducer. Some applications, there may be a reason to have a traditional sonar transducer and then a 2-in-1 for the side scan, down scan. That'd be for faster boats, for people that wanted to fish big water and cover a lot of ground. With the smaller transducers for traditional sonar, I can track fish up into the 40-mile-an-hour range, where with that 10-inch long transducer, 15 to 20 miles an hour is typically where we'll start to cavitate and lose. So, moving forward, these all have the SolarMax screens, IPS screens. So that means that they're brighter colors, they're sharper image, and they're also not going to wash out on you when you're wearing your polarized sunglasses on the boat. So traditionally, with a non-IPS screen, if I'm not standing within 10 degrees of being right in front of it, it'll start to black out. With these IPS screens, I can be standing between the windshields looking down and still see the screen. I could be in the transom of the boat dealing with fish and look up and see the screen at the helm. On the top back of the unit is a 10 kilohertz GPS. So that means that 10 times a second, it's updating your position. These are going to have a stated accuracy of 1 meter, 3 feet. Reality is they're probably closer and tighter than that, but that's what the stated range is. One of the reasons that we do that too is I don't want you to put a waypoint right on a rock wall to an entrance, because at night you could go right on the rock wall. So make sure that you put it a little off of the wall in the middle of the fairway so that you've got clear water if you're navigating at dawn or in the evening. Our mapping built in, but we also have the Reveal X cards. This is made for us by CMAP, which is another one of our companies. There is a difference between the NSX and the NSS mapping. It will have the Reveal X or the Discover X in the name of it. A non-X card will not be read by these units. So if you buy a card to get more detail for your use, make sure that you get the Reveal X or the Discover X. Discover X is the whole country. We've got about 28,000 lakes between the US and Canada. The Reveal X would be smaller segments. So we do inland maps, which would be the lake map. So all of your Houghton Lake type small lakes inshore are going to be on that chart. The Great Lakes, including Lake St. Clair, are going to be on our coastal cartography cards. All of these units have a 1 kilowatt sonar built into them. So that's going to give you the capability of seeing close to 3,000 feet with the right transducer and in the right application. So very powerful sonar units. We're also capable of radar. Most of your boats probably don't have it, but just be aware that it is something that is available. Could always be an add-on down the road to some of the boats. What radar is doing is sending out a radio signal, and then it bounces back off of any objects that are above the water, and it'll give you these blobs on your screen. So this would be like a small island. This might be a couple of channel markers, and we have a whole bunch of small boats out here in this harbor. Not sure if the boats have autopilot or not. If they do, you can either do a full screen or you can just have a pop out on the side. So in this case, I don't lose my charting information. I still have my data bars on the side, but I've got control of the autopilot with this little pop out. I can engage, disengage, I can change my course. And then when I'm done with that, I can hide that and go back to the full screen. As far as networking, so I mentioned the NEMA 2000 port on the back of the unit. That's going to allow me to bring in engine data, autopilot, audio control for your stereo system. We could have, like in a fishing boat, they may have a water temperature in a live well. Digital switching. So instead of having physical buttons, we would have digital buttons on our screen, which would let us turn on bilge pumps and lights and accent lights, open up engine hatches, all that type of stuff. And then we do have a companion app for your phone. It's free to download. That'll give you some basic information. If you pay for the subscription, which I believe is $15 a month, that'll allow you offline maps. So I've even used this in my car just to see where I'm going, how fast I'm going. Gives me the ability to lay out waypoints, routes, or trails while I'm watching a football game or a soccer game. And when I go to the boat, I can load that into the machine from my phone. Will also allow me to do a software update. I can download that from the web server to the phone. And when I get onto the boat, I can send it to the unit on the boat. So again, what we've done is very high definition, confident charting. We've got the companion app for off water preparation. Very fast lightning third-party apps. We've got IP camera support. There's a setup wizard when the first units are first turned on. Make sure we got it set up properly for our boat, what we have on the boat, whether it's a single engine or twin engine, tankage, all those types of things. And of course, it's got the built-in sonar for our traditional 2D sonar, the down and the side scan with the proper transducer. The inspector and main inspector basically is just a help device. Same thing with, we've got helpful hints, easy software updates. These again are designed on like an iPad to be in the marine environment. They're not going to fall out of your hand or out of a mount. They're designed to be in the sun. They're designed to get wet. They're designed to be washed. We have done some software to make auto routing easier. So we'll get into that when we get into the charting a little bit later. And then again, we've got waypoint and route management. And waypoints sometimes are highly overlooked. This is something that we can use, especially if you're doing any type of fishing. I like to have a symbol each year for different species, whether it's perch, walleye, bass, and then each icon that I make. So like I might pick a Christmas tree for the 2025 walleye. There's 7 colors of that Christmas tree, which gives me 7 different classes of fish. So after a couple of years of using the system, I can start to develop a lot of information on a chart screen just by looking, like if Taylor's going to come down to Ohio and we're going to go fishing on my boat, we want to have a cookout. I'm going to go find a bunch of 18-inch smaller fish. But if Steve's coming down, we're going to go fish a tournament, I want to go find the big 30-inch fish. So different information tells me where things are. The functionalities we're referring to now as apps. And so again, this is our home screen. So if somebody were to fall overboard, we can hit that man overboard, and it's going to keep that spot on the chart and show me drift away, and then I can circle back to where that person went overboard. Obviously, we hit the chart tile. That's going to open up a full screen of chart. If I hold my finger on that, that'll give me some preset split windows. There's the basic apps. So we've got charting up here, our waypoints and routes. This is tracks and then tides. So not something that we're going to use too much here in the Great Lakes. Here's our sonar. So we've got traditional sonar, the down scan, and then the side scan. So you see the symbology of the echo going off to the sides or going straight down. And then here's our radar, our instrumentation, and cameras. So again, on the charts, we're going to be using the CMAP Discover X or CMAP Reveal X. For Lake St. Clair, we would want to utilize the coastal chart, not the lake chart. So that was took me about a year to figure out why there wasn't any information on the Great Lakes with our chart cards. So sometimes a slow learner. But you'll see here in the middle is our triangle with the circle. So that's our boat's location. This is showing me a vector off to the right here. So that's a course over ground. So this is where we're going from on a route, waypoint to waypoint. We're a little bit to the left of the course that we want to follow. So that would tell me that visually I want to steer over to the right to come back up and hit that waypoint when I'm ready to get there. By touching the screen, we can get a pop-up which will bring up different waypoints that we've already saved or give us the ability to make a new waypoint or to navigate to that spot. So we can navigate to a cursor. If we're going around known entities, we could go on the far side of, say, Fire Island, and from where I am, it will draw me a safe route by auto routing around those known obstacles. Otherwise, if we just hit go to cursor, it's going to go straight as a bird flies. We do have the ability to import waypoints, routes, and trails from other systems. So if we had some older boats that had different units than Simrad, we can save those as a .usr or a .gpx and import those into the NSX units. Tracks, so when we leave the dock, it'll ask us if we want to record this trip. When we do, we're going to get this breadcrumb trail. Nice thing is we have 7 different colors. So if you're taking the boat out, all weekend, you would actually be able to have different colored tracks for each day so that you can see where you're going today as opposed to where you were yesterday. In the menu, we also have the ability to save the track on the hard drive, but not show it on the screen. So again, if we're doing multiple uses over a weekend, instead of having spaghetti on the screen, I can save that to utilize it at a different time, but not have it displayed on the screen. Just very quickly, we do have tide capability if you ever get into one of the units down south, like Steve is in the wintertime. So again, in our sonar, here we have the 3 sonars. On the left is our traditional sonar. That's got a lot of clutter in it, so the gain's kind of high there. So you would want to turn the gain down in this upper left quadrant to get rid of all of this blue in the background. And what we're looking for are these red, yellow, green, blue arches here, all up in here, up here. So those are our fish that are in the water column. And one of the things I want you to think about with sonar is how much area are we looking at? So Lake St. Clair is roughly 15 feet on average, right? So if I'm at 200 kilohertz on my traditional sonar, that means I'm looking at 3 feet of the bottom at 15 feet. So at 10 feet, you're only looking at 1.5 feet of the water column. So if you see 3 or 4 fish in that very small segment, that's pretty good population. It means that there's probably a pretty decent school of fish, even though you may not see a whole lot of them like you're seeing in this upper left corner. When we switch over to this upper right quarter, you can see very clearly the big rock pile that we're located over. You can see the drop off, and you can see another hill coming up. We're seeing that over here on this first traditional sonar. Well, I've also brought the fish arches from the traditional sonar onto the downscan. So this is what we call fish reveal. This is excellent because I see the structure. So whether it's rocks, trees, a wreck, I'm going to see what type of hardscape we're on. So what are the fish relating to? But I'll still see the fish arches that I'm used to seeing from traditional sonar, where that bottom detail is not as clear. As we look to the bottom of the screen here, we have the side scan. So this can be very confusing at first, but here's what I want you to know. The white line is the transducer. So I want you to think of that as the surface of the water. So the very top of the water. To the right of that line, this is my water column. Same thing that I'm looking at here. So here's the 2 hills and here's that swallow in the middle, right? So this upper right-hand corner, if I turn it onto its side, this is what I'm seeing right here. I'm just getting more detail out to 200 feet to the right side of what the bottom looks like. Over here, again, the white line is my water column, or my surface of my water. Here's my water column, fish suspended in it. There's some turbulence from the boat moving through and wave action. Here's my, here's my bottom. And then this is the bottom surface going out. And you can see there's a little bit of, looks like maybe some timber or some rock piles out here about 180 feet to the left side of the boat. Looking at the radar, we'll go quickly because again, I don't think you've got radars on the boats, but your location's here in the center. We're moving in this direction. And this is showing me boats that are around me. And this is showing me land masses that I'm moving towards. If we zoom out, this is at a 1/2 mile range for each one of these rings. So we're at 2 mile range is what we're looking at here. If I blow this out to a 24 or 36 mile range, I'll actually be able to see storm clouds and rain moving through the area. IP cameras are nice. So if you have any wake boats, where you might be doing some skiing or anything like that, it's nice to have this on the tower so we can look back and see the water while we're still looking forward and seeing what's going on. So you can see that we've got this picture-in-picture going where I've got my chart plotter here, but I do have the camera of what's in the transom going right here. So this is one that we market, but we can use any IP camera that's marinized. So I talked about this very early on, the man overboard. So this is what the button looks like here. When we hit that, it's going to mark that location and it'll route me back to where that person or that event happened, whether it's a hat going overboard or losing a person overboard. Once you get to that person, we hold that man overboard button down again, and that will get rid of it. So in our control bars, so on the left side of the screen is the control bar. This is where we're going to find the steering wheel for an autopilot. You'll see a music note for stereo, or if you've got digital switching, there'll be a little switching icon. When we tap on these icons, that will bring, so we tap on the little steering wheel and that pops out your autopilot control bar. So this is depending on what's installed on the boat, this control bar will vary. We can also close that so we've maximized our screen. We can even get rid of the data bars if we don't want that information. You can have that turned off so you've maximized that screen for your charting. Over here on the right side is just data windows. So we've got our depth, our speed over ground, our course over ground. Course over ground is the direction that the GPS antenna is moving, is not necessarily the direction that the bow is pointed. So we may be into current or wind, which would cause the boat to crab. So that's why the bow and the compass may say it's at 280 degrees, but the course over ground is 266 because wind or current is pushing me in a different direction. If we wanted that heading or that compass heading at the bow of the boat, we need to have a compass, a digital compass on board called a Precision 9, and then that would give me heading instead of course over ground. You can also see that if we had engines that could connect via NEMA 2000, I could get things like fuel flow, fuel level, fuel remaining, RPMs. So again, all dependent on what we have as far as sensors on board and then how it's configured. Here's the audio control. So we no longer make an audio server, but we can work with any of these manufacturers that have a NEMA 2000 stereo server. Again, here's our control bar for the autopilot. So we can go standby or auto. So to engage, we can change direction using the arrows. So one button pushes 1 degree, hold it down for 10 degrees. You can also see we've got a switches icon, which should be our next one. So when we open up switches, I can turn on my bilge pumps, live wells, the macerator, navigation lights. So all done on the screen without having to have switches on the dash. So let's talk about our interface. So we are trying to make this more familiar. So like using a smartphone or a tablet, or many of the new vehicles with the multifunction displays in them. So the idea is, again, to be able to keep adding functionality, to keep adding faster processors. The difference between the NSX and the new NSS4 as far as processor speed is night and day. It's very, very quick. So, power button. So over lower left-hand corner. So we tap that, it's going to turn the unit on. If we press and hold it, it will turn the unit off. If I multi-tap the A button, that will walk you through backlight levels. So if you ever come on to a boat in the morning and you hit the power button and it comes up, it says Simrad, and then the screen goes black, tap that power button and it'll bring up the backlighting because somebody might have been out at dusk or over the evening and turned the backlight down. The middle of the screen is a multi-touch screen. So again, that's how we're going to zoom in, zoom out. It's how we'll access all the functionality. So let's start off with A. Down here in the right-hand corner is our home screen. So that's going to bring me to that home screen that had all the tiles, all the different apps logos on them. The next one above it is the mark or waypoint button. So when we hit that, we're going to drop a waypoint and it'll give me the option to name it or just leave it as a number. It'll also give me the option to change what icon you're using, what color the icon is, and it'll also give me the ability to go in there and drop notes on it. So I could say, you know, refrigerator, submerged refrigerator, or exposed rock pile, you know, caution, or maybe it's a fishing spot. So I could tell myself what type of conditions that we were in, what type of bait I used, and what type of results I had. Next up is our recent apps. So this is something that we had looked at and then moved away from. So it'd be a quick back up to that. When we go into the D, these are the apps that we've pinned. So these are the ones that we've deemed to be the most important. So we could fill up this whole section here that's black with different apps and give me quick access to them rather than having to go back to the home screen. Up in the top is our status bar. So we're going to get GPS signal strength as well as our time. Then we've got the instrument bar, which we already talked about. So this is where we're getting all of our data. The big part of the window is the app window. Upper right-hand corner is our menu. So if I have multiple screens, there will be an outline around the active screen. And when I hit that menu button, the H up in the right-hand corner, it's going to give me the menu options for that particular highlighted screen. Down in the lower left is the ability, if I had split screens and I wanted to blow up my chart, I hit that, it's going to make it full screen. If I hit it a second time, it'll go back to the split screen. And then over here on the left is the control bar, which we just talked about previously. So again, here on our home screen, we have all of our different apps. So we hit that button, brings me back to this screen. The control bar, we can just put our finger on the edge of it and swipe it to the left to hide it. That'll give me a very thin line over here on the left side of the screen. If there's any alerts, so we lost our GPS or we haven't finished setting up the unit because it's a brand new boat, we'll get a little alert here. Once we've finished what we need to do, we can clear out and get rid of those alerts. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, the cogwheel is our settings app or access. So that's where we're going to go in to find things. That's like if we need to tell the system all the dimensions of the boat, so that when I do auto routing, it'll do that safely. Or if I needed to change the time, let's say we trailered the boat down to Texas and we needed to change time zones, we can do that. Or if we went to Minnesota, something like that. Again, this is just all of our apps here in the middle with E, our status bar, upper left-hand corner. And then again, our pinned apps, the recent apps, the marks, and then exit. So again, pressing and holding on the app icon, and then we can pin that into our pinned apps over on the right side of the bar. We also have the ability to adjust these, so I can switch which one's at the top, which one's at the bottom. Now we've got it ordered up the way that we want it. And then if I needed to unpin something, we just hold our finger on that again and it'll pull it away. So again, this is split screen. So there's a number of different ways that you can split them up. And as I said earlier, there will be a highlight around whichever window is the active one. So when I go to the button for the menu, that'll give me my sonar versus my chart versus my fuel. But in order to create your own, we're going to hit a new split. We're going to drag the functions from here into the larger portion of the screen. And once we're done with that, make sure that you hit save. If you just cancel or change screens, you won't have saved that screen into the menu. And it'll also give you the ability to add a name to it if you like. So status icons, these will be up in that upper right-hand corner of the screen above the pinned apps. So if we're using Wi-Fi, whether on our phone or at the marina, we'll see our signal strength, or if there's an error or disconnected. Same thing here, we've got our internet connected or an error, no internet, mobile device disconnected, Bluetooth connected, sound off. So water mode, so let's say we were in a heavy downpour, that may reduce the responsiveness of the screen due to the water on it. There is the ability to lock the screen. So let's say we had some small children running around the boat and I didn't want them changing that. I can lock the screen, and then by holding the power button down, I will unlock it. And then just some other maintenance things. Check oil, fuel low, your radar is transmitting there's a remote controller involved, or we're synchronizing waypoints, routes, and tracks from our phone app. So again, here we are on our chart screen. The triangle and the circle is our current location, showing us which direction we're going. So this would be in a north up mode. If you do heads up mode, the way that the boat is traveling will be at the top of the screen. The other mode that you'll see is course up mode. In course up mode, let's say that I'm navigating to a waypoint and it told me that the bearing to the waypoint was 230 degrees. So I can go to 230 degrees and then I'm going to put it on course up mode. And that's sort of a steering aid, because if I start to fall off of that line, the screen is going to start to shift. So I want to keep 230 degrees at the top of the screen. So as long as my screen isn't moving, I know I'm on that waypoint ley line. So we can see here with this black line and the see little hash marks, that is the direction that we're moving. So our extension line, and it gives me little breaks. So depending on what zoom level I'm at, each one of these hash marks could be a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, or a mile. Earlier I talked about crabbing and course over ground versus heading. So in this case, C is a green line, kind of hard to see, but that is the heading, or the way the bow is pointing based on a compass, versus the course over ground, which is coming from the GPS sensor. Again, upper right-hand corner, D, that is our chart menu. So if I wanted to make a waypoint, a route, a track, change offsets, one of the things we can do is typically the boat will be in the middle of the screen and the chart will move past it. We can do what's called a look forward. So it will move the vessel icon into the lower third of the screen. So I'm going to lose some of the things that are behind me, but it allows me to see further ahead of me without having to zoom out. In this case, we happen to be in north up mode. So we see that indicated up here in the corner. And that also explains why the boat's moving off to the side as opposed to up towards the top. This is our zoom bar, zoom in, zoom out with the plus and minus. And then below that, if I were to scroll off the screen with my finger and wanted to come back to my vessel, I'm going to hit this little bullseye, the G mark, and that'll bring me back to where the boat's at. Down here, we have our zoom level. And then over here is the current zoom. And over in the right-hand corner is our maximize or restore. So that'll make the screen bigger if we're in a split screen, or it'll take me back to that split screen. So if we are just kind of hanging out, maybe anchored or drifting, and we're not interacting with the chart, we'll have a declutter. So it's going to center in on the vessel. It'll chart rotate will become transparent. So that's up here in the corner. That was white with the black N in it. That goes clear. And then your chart menu, search and maximize buttons are removed. So again, just simplifies what you're looking at. So again, we've panned away from the boat and we get off course. So by hitting this button here, the B button, that's going to bring us back to where the boat's located. So this will give you some of the different functionalities with the C maps. So again, I talked about the look ahead mode. So that's where it's going to put the icon for the boat's location in the lower third of the screen, give you more forward information at the same zoom level. Live data. So this could be overlays on top of our chart. So it could be AIS. So that's the automatic identification system. Lake St. Clair on the St. Clair River, Detroit River. That's very handy because there's a lot of commercial freighters. So you will see triangle shape, which would be that vessel. When you click on it, it'll tell you the closest point of approach. So that's the distance till we come together, the time to the closest point of approach. It may also give me the vessel's name. So if I have a closest point of approach, which is shrinking, that means that vessel and I are going to intersect at some time. If it's growing, that means it's moving away from me, so I don't need to pay as much attention to that. We'll also have the ability to overlay radar on top of the chart. Bathymetric controls. So bathymetric controls are the contour lines. So if you're at all familiar with topographical maps for hiking, it's the same thing that we have, but for underwater. So it's going to give me all the contour lines. We have 1 foot contour lines, and it'll show that bottom dropping off. So when we're looking for structure that fish might relate to, that can be a very key thing to find. We have the ability to turn a depth palette on. So I can pick a certain color. So let's say I'm looking for 15 feet of water because I hear that's where fish are biting. I may choose to make that pink in color. So that way any spots that's 15 feet is going to show up on the chart as a pink blob. And that tells me, okay, here's some different spots to go check out. And then we come to the layers for the mapping. So we do have, with the reveal chips, we'll have satellite imagery. So typically harbors and marinas. We'll also have shaded relief. Shaded relief gives me a little bit of a 3D view. Some people like it. I prefer it off, but that's one of the things to try and see if it works for you. Marine protected areas. So if we had like manatee areas down in Florida, or if there were some seagrass areas, some wetland areas, up when we're going up into the middle channel, north channel area, we can turn that information on and off. We also have user content, so we can show our waypoints, routes, give us the ability to see all of that information or only some of it. Again, we talked about the track, so that's where we're leaving the breadcrumb trail as we're driving the boat around, showing us where we've been. That's a very nice thing to utilize if you're in any type of fog, rainstorm, where we're leaving someplace. We got into, let's say we went to a restaurant, we got there and the storm came. Well, I want to come home. If I had my trail from the marina to that restaurant, I can just follow that trail back, and I know I've already been through there, so it's good water. So it just gives me another sense of comfort. This is also where we can turn on our extension lines. So I mentioned the heading line and the course over ground lines on that previous chart screen. So that's where we'd be able to turn these on and off. You can also do grid lines, or you can do range rings. So if you want to know how far something is from you, you can turn the range rings on, and it'll tell you, depending on your zoom level, how far each ring is, so we can find that an object is a mile or 2 miles away, or whatever the distance might be. When we get into filtering, this will help to set the depth at which chart objects are hidden. Chart objects such as soundings, wrecks, and rocks are hidden when greater than selected depth. So if we're zooming out to a greater range, I'm not going to want as much detail on that chart. I want to see bigger things like islands and channels. So that can be controlled again down here in the chart detail. This would also be where we would turn on our tides and currents. And then lastly is the chart source. So these units have a built-in map, but they may, again, if we have a CMAP reveal card in that or a discover card, that would show up down here and give us a choice to select that. Oops. Okay, so that's down here in H. Auto routing. So this is a very popular function that we have done a lot of work on to make it a little easier. This does require that somebody has set up in the system all the dimensions of the boat. So we need to know the height, the depth, the width, the length. So we've got the draft as well. And that way, when I go from my current, here's my intended destination A, So that's going to pop up this little mini inspector. We're going to hit go to, and then it'll give me auto route available. We're going to hit yes, and it'll draw the line then from where I am to where I want to go, as opposed to taking me as a crow flies through land masses. So auto routing is a very nice feature. You're sure used to using that in your automobiles. So it's taken us a little while to get it here to you in the boat, but now we've got it. So navigating between 2 points, we're going to press and hold at the start location. This will bring up the chart inspector over here on the right. So we're going to select route. Then we're going to select the destination. And then go to the route options icon, and this will calculate the auto route for this leg. Once we do that, we want to verify that this auto route that the system's created is safe. There's nothing that makes me nervous. If there is, I can adjust those points. And then when we're done with that, we're going to hit finish, and we're going to be able to follow that route from here to here. Manually creating a route is very easy. We're going to start with the start location. Then we're going to go to our next spot, and we're going to do a long press. That'll drop my next mark. Then I'm going to go to my third spot, long press, drop a waypoint. We're coming to our fourth mark, our fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. So you're just touching the screen and dropping those waypoints where you want them. A little bit more time consuming than auto routing, but this way you know that you're putting the spot where you want it. The nice thing is once we've created that route, it is reversible. So if I save that into the system and we're going to Harson's Island, I go from the marina to Harson's Island. I don't need a second waypoint. I just bring up Harson's Island and reverse the order, and it'll bring me from my 7th waypoint back to my 1st. Okay. Again, tracks. This gives me just where I have already been. I've told you that we have different colors for the tracks. We have the ability to display it and save it, or we can just save it on the hard drive and not have it on the screen. So I don't have to look at yesterday's track when I'm going out to go fishing this morning. When we go into the tracks, it'll tell me how long we ran it, what the distance was. So here's track 4, there's track 3 below it. This is my current track, so it's only 5 minutes long and we're just under a mile in length. This is bringing in user data from like a Go 7 or Go 9. If we wanted to bring that into the NSX, we do have the ability to copy those onto a micro SD card, bring it into this unit, and import all that data into the NSX. So probably something more for the crew when they're first starting to get a boat ready. In the Echo Sounder, so again, what we have here is our sonar screen. Up here in the upper left-hand corner is paused or play. So that's going to stop the scrolling. So if I want to check out what we're looking at here, I can stop it from scrolling. I can put my cursor on, right here and mark that underwater location of those fish. That way, when I go back to that waypoint, it brings me right to where those fish are, not where the boat was when I made that I made that waypoint. So up here, number C, we see SS 164 and 200 kilohertz. So this is the transducer that we're utilizing. That's the model of transducer. And then 200 kilohertz is the frequency that we're transmitting at. So if you remember, I said that at 200 kilohertz with a traditional sonar and 15 feet of water like Lake St. Clair, I may only be looking at 3 feet. If I switch that to 50 kilohertz, in 15 feet of water, we would be looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 feet on the bottom. And just think of this, when we're looking at this, I'm sending out a cone of sound. So it's narrower at the surface, wider at the bottom. Over here, 22 meters, so we've got our digital depth. If we had temperature sensor, that would give me my temperature right here at E. Over here again, the little hamburger is where our menu is. And then the 4 X's are going to make this a full screen sonar. We do have the ability to zoom. So by turning on a zoom window, using our plus and minus on the left side of the screen here, this is showing me my total zoom level. And then C is showing me which area I've magnified. So I have the ability, if I'm fishing in a water column, I could slide my zoom level of say 20 feet up to the top. So it's at the surface, down 20 feet when I'm in 100 feet of water. Because I don't care about what's on the bottom. I'm looking for fish that are feeding at the top of it. Or if I was looking for bottom feeding fish, I could bring that zoom bar down to the bottom so that I'm blowing up all these fish on the bottom of the screen. And that's what you're seeing over here on the right side. We also have the ability to track back. So I'm recording a 15-minute loop of the sonar, and it is GPS stamped. So on the right side of the screen is always my newest or freshest information. The left side of the screen is the oldest information. So you can see the shadow area here is my newer information. I'm in the middle because I found this hump, but I still have some more information off to the left that I could scroll further back. And again, I've got the ability to drop a waypoint on that screen, even though it's already an older sonar reading. So some of the cursor features. So a short tap will bring up the cursor. Shows our little mini inspector. So do we want to add a waypoint? Do we want to go to something? Are we looking to measure it? Or are you trying to get some more information? At the cursor too, it'll tell me where we're at. Okay. Depth range. So right here is telling us we're in auto mode in a 30-meter depth range. So auto mode is always going to keep the bottom and the surface on the screen. If I go into a manual mode and I pick 20 feet, I could go into a deeper area and I'm not going to see the bottom. I'm just going to be looking at the top 20 feet of the water column. We have different palettes that we can choose. We also have frequencies. So here in B is the frequency. So again, that's going to be the size of the cone, so the amount of ground coverage that we're going to get, but it's also the strength of the signal. So the higher the number, the more definition you're going to get, but the less coverage you're going to get. So at 200 kilohertz in 30 feet of water, we're looking at a 6-foot circle. At 50 kilohertz, I'm looking at a 28-foot circle. But if I had a small fish like a perch right tight to the bottom, that 50 kilohertz signal may blow through that and I won't see it as a separate target from the bottom. Where that higher frequency, the 200 kilohertz, is going to help me see that fish 4 to 6 inches off the bottom, where the strong signal may just blend it into the bottom. Next in C, we have the palette. So that's the color of the sonar. So there's 10 different palettes. We can see an example of that over here. So this is showing you 8 of them, but there's 10 palettes in total. So depending on your conditions, whether you're fishing at night or out in a bright sunny day, just what you're used to. Downscan overlay. So this would bring the downscan picture and put that over the bottom. So I would still have my fish arches, but I would have more information as far as what this hump is. Is that a rock pile? Is it upside down hull of a boat. What are we looking at? Fish ID, something kind of popular when we have small children on, that will give me an icon. Or give me a depth that the fish are at, or it'll give me both, or I could also have fish beeps. So if you've ever seen the Wicked Tuna show, their sonars beep. They're using Simrad sonar, so it's letting them know that there's fish down on the bottom. We do have the ability to record the sonar. So if we don't have a USB in the USB drive or a micro SD card in the card slot, it's going to save it to the hard drive. The only issue with that is that it's also going to start to impact your ability to save waypoints, routes, and trails. So, and then down here, where'd it go? Here's our advanced menu. So this is where we're going to get into things like gain, color sensitivity, the ping speed, how often is the sonar sending out the signal? Do we want a split screen or no split screen? For the most part, I think for what most of you are doing is cruising around, probably won't utilize most of this. So typically just leave it in the auto mode. Radar app, we'll go through this very quickly. Again, here's our screen, what we call the PPI. This is our current range. Up here, 50 miles. This is our range control, zoom in, zoom out. This is telling me whether we're transmitting or in standby. This is what radar antenna we're utilizing. So like our domes actually have two transmitters, an A and a B. So that's what we're seeing here is a 4G radar or a Halo. Those are both domes. Up again is the little hamburger for our menu. And then G is just giving me current gain, C, and rain clutter settings. So let's say we're out and we're marking targets and all of a sudden a rainstorm squall moves through and it's raining all around me. When I turn my rain filter on, it's going to bring a little filter and it's going to filter out all that noise so I can still see the objects that are close to me, hard objects that I'm trying to avoid. On the sidebar, we have the ability to customize what we're looking at. So if I touch this icon, I can come here and pick different sources. So instead of course over ground, maybe I wanted that to be bearing to waypoint. Or like down here, we have supply voltage. So let's say we've got a sort of a weak battery, so we want to keep an eye on that. So we want to make sure that we've got our battery voltage up in our data bar. In our alerts, they'll let us know if software updates are available, and then if we're doing the update, how it's progressing. And then with the app for your phone, which you can download from your app store on your phone, it'd be the Simrad companion app. We can connect this directly to the internet, and we're going to be able to bring Wi-Fi onto the unit. So if I wanted to download a software update to a card in the card reader rather than do it from the phone, I can use my phone's Wi-Fi, or I could connect the marina's Wi-Fi to the internet. The other option is, again, we could download all that information to our phone at the house. When we go to the boat, we're going to connect the NSX to our app, which will then bring that cloud information straight to the unit. So that was a lot. If you have any questions, feel free to come off and mute.
Hey, Jim. Jim Lochevsky, go ahead and answer. Come off mute and ask your question that you have in the chat. Jim, are you available? Chris, Jim's question is, how do you change the color on the track?
So when you go into the track menu, it'll give you, there's going to be 5 different color patterns that you can pick from that. Let me see if I can pull that back up. Bear with me a second. Tracks. Okay, let me share the screen again. Come on, PowerPoint.
Technology is great when it works.
It is, and when the nut behind the wheel knows what he's doing, but at the end of the day, that varies, right?
That's why I have a bunch of
current
20-year-olds
slide.
operating my business.
That's a smart man.
Yeah.
Let's try this.
Hang on, Donna, we'll get to you next. And keep typing. If anybody has any questions, just throw them in the chat. Probably the easiest way to get them to come across. It looks like we're having some technology. Go ahead, Nick. If you, Chris, if you can try to explain it.
Yeah, so when we get to the track menu, I'm going to shut this. How about this? Have you got it now?
There we go. There we go. Yep, we're live.
Let me find the tracks. Here we go. Okay, so this is our track menu. And see that here on the right side of the screen? And then up here in the track is where we're going to be able to pick the different colors. So you just need it when you're on when you're in track mode, you're going to bring up the track screen, and that's where you'll be able to change it. So I'm sorry I don't have a good picture of that, but all right, what other questions have we got?
Donna's question is, does Navionics work with NSX?
No, it does not. So the Neon operating system is completely different, and they have not formatted their cards to work with the NSX.
Is there any chance that could be happening in the near future?
Possible, but probably unlikely, as Garmin owns Navionics, so they're probably not going to do the extra work to make it work with our new operating system.
Probably not. Okay. Anyone else? Chris, I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's it's just such a great partnership working with Brunswick and Navionics, and that we're able to host these kind of learning seminars for our members. It just is to be able to truly understand how to use the Navionics and take advantage of all the software upgrades that have happened in the past few years. It's just truly amazing to me. Every time I get on the boat, I'm like, all right, now what's this screen for?
Well, I keep wondering what they're going to come up with next, but they keep coming up with new toys. So, but hey, I appreciate everybody's time. I know I threw a lot of information at you. I'm more than happy to answer any emails. So if you want to email Taylor, she'll get it to me and we'll get you answers. So if I didn't get you what you needed today, I hope that you feel a little bit more comfortable with the units. Don't be afraid of them. You can't break them.
And the other thing is we're going to be we recorded this seminar and we're going to be posting it to our members on the band app. So if anybody has has missed it or wants to go back and